I don't think that holds water.
I can see your point.
So just while we're getting started, we have a few changes to some of the panelists, as you might see. We had a few people that unfortunately had some emergencies or illnesses, and so couldn't make it in. So so we do have Taran Dagan from IBM substituting in for a few folks tonight, and Smokey's also not here, as well as TJ and Susha. So, but we'll get through anyway. So we'll just give us one more minute.
Tragic accident.
You guys are like really close. You guys can spread out a little bit if you want. So like,
we like each other.
It's nice and toasty up here. It's fine. You guys are like right under the lights. You guys, 10 more minutes.
Are you saying we need more space? Is that what you're trying to imply?
I showered.
All right, I'm trying to get you guys.
I have. Thank you. Yeah. How about you?
Yeah. Always, never a dull moment. I'd like to just have a year where the business plan doesn't have to evolve so dramatically every 6 weeks. But, oh, God.
It's good that I have this chair. I have a car waiting at 5 o'clock. I've got to get to LAX pronto.
To where?
LAX. I'm out of here to Denver tomorrow.
Well, you're fortunately very close to LAX.
I know, but it's Monday and it's rush hour.
Yeah.
And you never know what's going down in Lincoln.
Well, we could get started or wait for glasses.
Get started.
Want to get started?
Start choking.
Okay.
What's the problem is.
You guys are like killing me already. This is like, it's bad enough that we're right before cocktails, you know.
It should be right after cocktails.
There you go.
You'd be a better panel.
So Paul's been with us for far too many years. So, all right. So we're going to go ahead and get started. So we'll just have one little interruption when they bring in some glassware for the panelists, for some water and stuff. But my name's Mark Kapczynski. Welcome to our panel. The focus today centers around looking at platforms and content and devices and so on. The way I've actually interpreted this panel in years over the years has been really centered around a thesis on, are we in a golden era of Hollywood or not, or some piece of that, and really what does that mean? And so the goal of the panels today is really to explore the thesis, are we going through a new golden era of Hollywood? You know, think back to the 50s and 60s when, television was booming, the film industry was booming, and, content was being created and deficit financed by the studios and getting out to the masses in some new ways and very, very limited channels. But everyone saw television, everyone went to the movies. And so sort of the thesis is to explore, are we going through something similar? And if so, in what ways? And if not, in what ways as well? So hopefully we'll have fun on the panel. I'm going to ask each of the panelists to introduce themselves. So give us a little bit of your background, some of the things you've done, and how you got to this point. And then we'll start off with a common question, and then from there dive into discussion for the next hour or so. And then if you have questions, just save them up. Signal me towards the end, and we'll try to get to as many questions as we can. But we'll go through sort of the discussion first, and then save room at the end for the Q&A. So with that, Dave, can you lead us out of the gate and tell us a little bit about yourself? And then
certainly I can talk for the next hour, and maybe there's be some time left at the end.
Pictures of the grandkids.
That's
and
it.
Show too. And
I'm currently with Stars Encore. I'm the executive vice president of program planning there. Prior to that, I was with HBO for 31 years. Before I left there, I was comfortably retired, and my ex-boss, Chris Albrecht, talked me back into getting back into this crazy business one more time. Thank you very much, Chris. I'm working harder and longer for less money than I ever have in my life. What you do know about Stars Encore is, of course, that we run premium channels. We have 7 channels of Stars. We have 8 channels of Encore. We have 3 what we call Movieplex channels, which get some lighter distribution. We have a digital version of all of those linear channels. We create Stars Play, which is a streaming service. We create Encore Play. for the inventory on Encore, and we also create multiplex play. In addition to that, we offer up digitally on demand, all three of those brands to as many of our affiliates as we can talk into taking. And we have also a number of platforms that we're already available on. We're available on iOS, Android. We are currently on Xbox 360. We're on Xbox One. We have plans in the future to expand greatly the number of devices that we can send our content through, with the primary goal of getting to what's called the big glass. Right now, most of our efforts have been toward handheld devices, phones, and iPads and the like. But certainly for us and for the future of Stars Encore, it's how to get to the big glass quickly, efficiently, and have it work absolutely correct. One last comment. Things also you don't know about Stars Encore: we are a full service, almost studio. We own Anchor Bay Films, which deal with hard goods, DVDs, distribution of acquired product, and our own licensed original product. We have a division called Stars Media, who deals only in the digital distribution of our product, acquired and or originals, selling to people like Netflix and Hulu and Amazon Prime and others around the world. And we have another division that's good old-fashioned television, run by Gene George, who actually sells real television the old-fashioned way. So the good fortune of Stars Encore right now is that we are an absolute full-service company, unlike the rest of the people that share our space in premium. HBO and Showtime, for example, can't do the things that we can do. It leans toward us to be more efficient in terms of creating multifaceted buys and also multifaceted sales of our product. And I'll stop now because, like I said, I could do this for an hour, but I want to share the time with Paul and others.
You have a PowerPoint
Such a
deck.
giver.
And, Paul, welcome back to the panel as well. So tell us a little bit about yourself.
My name is Paul Kolishman. I, for many years, was a producer. I produced over 150 movies and television series. And then while I was producing about 10 years ago for a lot of other cable television channels, I decided to start my own cable television channel. So I started a channel called Here TV for the gay and lesbian community, my community. And it's now available in every major cable market in the country. We're an on-demand offering in many of them, although we are linear on all Time Warner systems, some Comcast systems, and a variety of other players. The creation of Here TV started the beginning of a business plan which rolled up all of the gay and lesbian media that was worth rolling up in the United States. So we have purchased Out Magazine, The Advocate, Gay.com, Gay.net, She Wired, Out Traveler. I could go on, but you get the general idea. And so we have print magazines, lots of digital brands, our own social network, and of course our own television network. Here TV is it's a mini pay, and we do sell to other international markets for regular old television, Gene George style, because Gene used to be my head of sales. We also have Here Media, which does its own digital direct with Amazon, Netflix, etc. after it plays on Here. So we no longer are in the DVD business. So that's something we don't do much anymore. Occasionally a title will look to DVD, but frankly, in the last year or so, we have found it no longer worth our while on specialty titles to go to DVD. It's kind of a push, so why bother? Those sales have definitely moved digitally. And What else would you like to know about?
That's good.
That's it.
Good.
Good.
Good starting point. We'll dive deeper on a few of those things.
After we
got a number of
glasses.
questions.
After
I know.
After glasses.
I'll run out in a second. Scott, welcome back to the panel as well. You want to introduce yourself, and I'll quickly step out and see if I can.
Sure. My name is Scott Brown. I'm Senior Vice President with Nielsen. I've been with the Nielsen Company about as long as David's been in the business, which is a long time. Seen a lot of different changes and a lot of evolutions. Been fortunate to really be involved with, on behalf of Nielsen, in all of the kind of mind-altering changes that have occurred in the last 20 years or so, the digital transition, the advent of time shifting, the move to video on demand. And now more recently, as more and more content is moving to mobile platforms, smart television, so forth, I find myself very much involved and engaged in that. I find that the impact of changes to the industry are profound nowadays, right? So it seems like every day you pick up a newspaper or magazine, there's some other major announcement that represents a fairly significant shift, a shift either in distribution, a shift in consumption, or a shift in terms of some partnership or some new alliance that's been formed. In many respects, I think the Nielsen Company looks to itself as, the sort of the chaperone of providing clients with insight and information about the level of changes that are occurring in the industry, try to bring some comprehension to it to the extent that that's possible. But clearly, I think all of us have seen the shifts and understand that people are simply using television a bit differently than has historically been the case. And technology has been the great liberating factor in all of that, digital technology in particular. So I think what's interesting is not only to assess the landscape today and understand what's unfolding, but also to prognosticate about what the future is going to hold a year, 2 years, or 5 years from now. I bet if any of us were polled, none of us would get the guess right as to what television is going to look like in 5 years. But the nice thing about sort of looking into the future is the advantage of time being on your side. It's hard to be wrong. So we'll see in 5 years where we stand.
Thanks, Scott.
We might have glasses by then.
They're coming. Trust me, they're coming. John.
There'll be an iPhone 7 out before we get these glasses.
Someone get some damn glasses.
No, those are dirty. Those are dirty.
Those are used. We're not that desperate yet.
They're half empty and the water's dirty.
We're just going to talk about the glasses and water for the next hour, right? All right, John, welcome for joining us. John was actually on an earlier panel of mine, so he's been spending the whole day with me here, it feels like.
Yeah,
so, welcome.
Panelist stalker. My name is John Redding. I work at Vindabona Productions. We're an independent TV and digital studio. America's Sunniest Home Videos is our main product. We also have some product on unscripted stuff on HGTV, Bravo, and True. AFE, we just entered our 25th season, the longest running primetime entertainment program on ABC. We're in near the very top of all streaming product for ABC Disney, and distributed internationally around the world.
Great. Welcome. Thanks, John. Tehran,
Yeah.
Thanks for filling in for us on last minute, so appreciate it.
Pleasure.
Tell us a little bit about yourself, your history from NBC, as well as now what you're working on at IBM.
Super. My name is Tehran Nagan. I'm a partner in IBM's Global Business Services Media Entertainment. It's a mouthful. I'm in an area called S&A, which part of why I'm so excited and passionate about where I found myself. I'm a deep business embed in the middle of a technology company, passionate about the industry, and find myself in an ecosystem where a company that's reshaping its future around social media, social analytics, cloud, mobile, and cognitive computing. My background is from industry. I made this unusual turn from between consulting and industry. I used to lead a group at NBC called SIA, Strategic Initiatives and Analysis, one letter away from CIA, and a very unique team, both East Coast, West Coast, that worked with every aspect of a diversified media company across film, theme parks, cable news, production, every aspect of a media company, taking the strategic plans and making them actually happen by pulling up your sleeves and transforming and building the business.
Terrific. Well, welcome. So you guys kind of, certainly Scott, Paul, and Dave have kind of heard me pontificate about this golden era. So I'm going to start down at that end and put Tehran and John on the hot seat first here. To me, it feels like there's a new golden era in Hollywood. We've transformed for so many years. There were some gaps. The technologies have come and gone through the years, from going from black and white to color, from no sound to sound, and so on. To me, it's a fascinating time because now there's just so much technology. It's been so pervasive. It's so easy for consumers to get access to content. Are we in a new golden era, of some sort? And how would you define it? And what's your thought on that?
How would we know if we're there?
Good question.
There's the book, Tim Vu's book, The Master Switch, on what the waves of change that have gone through telecom and then the cable industry and then film and content. And it's interesting because there are cycles that have been repeating themselves into consolidation and then a breakup and some kind of a diversification. It almost feels like we're in one of those cycles of the 50 years of how we've done business is now many small different ways of conducting business, none of them which have still supplanted the traditional model, but all of which cannot be ignored and everyone is looking at.
So does that mean you think we're out of like an experimentation phase and we're into I think
we're kind of in the dip of, it feels like it's in the dip of, we'll see what picks up, what is that golden age. But if you'll ask the folks in digital who've grown in digital, they feel that they're in the golden age. But I think that the potential is much bigger than the realization of value. And the same thing goes across, the multi-platform capabilities or new storytelling capabilities, transmedia. A lot that's being tried in many different new ways. It doesn't feel like to me, it doesn't feel like a golden age yet.
Got it, John. What do you think? I'm going to put you on the spot. And
his name is John. John and Spot.
As a producer, the golden age is the having a direct relationship with the consumer. That now we have a one-on-one. We have over 5 million Facebook likes. We do 20 million views a month on YouTube, 15 million subs. So having that direct relationship with the consumer allows us to distribute some product directly to them and incubate and spin off brands from our core product as well. And that's entirely new in the last 5 years.
Got it. Scott, what do you think? We've kind of put you on the spot before, but it seems
that hasn't stopped you.
Yeah, well, it's part of my job here. So
yeah, I don't know if I don't know what this era is. Certainly, it's an era of incredible change and rapid acceleration. You see a lot of experiments that have occurred in the last couple of years, some of which have panned out and played out well, and others that haven't. I think there's a bit of a reordering that's taking place. I'm not sure if it's a golden era, maybe. It's not a bad era to be in the content business. I think the content business players are probably in the optimal position, just my personal opinion from what I see. Distribution is certainly changing rapidly. The agency and the advertising business is also changing. So if you look at the net of it all, yeah, I agree. There are cycles of change that you naturally go through in this industry, and we're in a cycle that might be a pause at this particular moment. Not to insinuate anything negative about a pause. In terms of technology and the impact that it has, a pause and a refresh and a rebreathe is actually probably a positive thing.
So do you think so? That's from the consumer standpoint, that they're just absorbing the technologies that are out there right now.
I think if you think about what consumers have been,
also just pull your mic closer.
Might not be
twist it.
In my ears, I'm very loud. And my wife,
I think they're webcasting.
And my wife will say rude as well. But, so I hear myself loudly. But it's partly from the consumer standpoint. I think consumers have been hit with so much technology and so much change that I think they're struggling to adapt to what is the best to go with. There seems to be a settling that's occurring. So it's sort of iOS or Android in the mobile space, right? And that's a bit of a change. It's still a hits business, as my good friend Dave will tell you. I mean, he's been with HBO for, did you say 31 years?
It was the turn of the
Turn of-
20th century,
yeah.
1906.
It was a while back.
And we were just going from horses to
Right, right.
cars.
To more horses.
Right. And, yeah. And so, I mean, how did HBO build its franchise? You built it around hits like Sopranos and on and on. And nothing has changed about that in the business that I've seen today. It's still a hits business. The trouble is the hits are now much smaller. Measuring has gone from segments of viewing or pieces of the viewing pie to basically slivers, smaller and smaller slivers. So yeah, measurement it is more challenging because there are more sources. But can all sources survive? Is the advent of all these different sources and all their little microcosms of appeal substantiated, and will it last? I don't know. But intuitively, it feels like it can't always continue like this. This unabated growth has to reach a point of stabilization.
Paul, what do you think? I mean, you're having to deal with this, right? You have a very focused audience and of consumers that you're trying to appeal to in terms of your content and how you reach them, and basically the content that you're trying to get out to them that they're demanding. So how do you balance all this?
Well, I think the answer is as to whether we are in a golden age depends entirely on who you are. In general, I don't think we're in a golden age. If I was speaking, if I had to make a broad statement, but it certainly is a golden age for some people.
Yeah.
Who is it a golden age? Well, who is it not a golden age for? Let's start with that. If you're an independent producer, although it seems like there's a lot of distribution, so you're in a golden age, there's not the concentration of money for independent film that there was a few years ago. That doesn't feel so golden. The DVD business, which was much less efficient than this business, was much better for independent producers. We got large advances from DVD companies to make our movies. We usually got to keep our international rights for further upside. It was, when DVDs were roaring, that was a golden age for independent film. When you talk about a hit-driven business, you're right. The hits have grown, as far as budgetarily, bigger and bigger. Mm-hmm. And as far as audience, what it now constitutes a hit is now smaller and smaller.
Right.
How long can larger budgets serving smaller audiences still make money for people? Right. For a while, I mean, I certainly think that, there's some mileage left in the old model, but I also think that we may be at the end of the golden age of that model. That model may be, transitioning out over the next several years. So probably not a golden age for you if you're a basic cable channel, I'm going to guess, because I foresee a future where audiences get to pick what they want to watch and only pay for what they want. So if you're a star, you're already in that model, or if you're frankly a Here TV, you're already in that model. People buy us separately. But if you're a channel who gets a very low rating and basically survives off the license fees you get paid from Time Warner and Comcast, I don't think this is your golden age. I think they're going to be grinding you lower and lower based on the fact that they're being squeezed. So there was a lot of content being created for basic cable that I think you're going to continue to see budgets come down. They're going to ask more and more of independent producers, give me more for less, give you fewer rights, etc. I think it's a very challenging time for independent producers. It's one of the reasons I created a cable channel and bought a bunch of other properties. It's like, this independent producing thing is getting really hard. I don't know. And I'd already lived through the music business. My partner was Miles Copeland at IRS. So I'd already lived through what happened in the music business. And frankly, in buying all these magazines, I kind of was there and having to reinvent journalism, which is also not having a golden age right now. 5 years ago, journalists made a living. Independent producers made a good living. The value of creative people is dropping right now. So yes, a lot more people can see you, but who's paying for it? Right. And so if you're a technology person, this is probably your golden age because you get to disrupt the big boys. So if you're a disruptor, they're probably having a golden age, though it's still not entirely sure how they're all going to monetize it. Because at the end of the day, unless people are paying for subscriptions, you're relying on selling ads. And if those advertisers have more and more choices, that means they can pay you less and less.
That's right.
And when you realize, the thing that I really realized this year is that most YouTube stars who no one has ever heard of, have bigger audiences than most television shows, and more reach. So it's frightening when you look at some of these 20-year-old girls with their fashion channels who have more viewers than major network television shows. They're not really being paid for that yet, but really, how long can that last?
Right. Yeah, they'll get finicky soon.
Well, not even that, but the reality is people will stop paying for the other people. So if there's a whole lot more stars, just like reality television, once there's more stars, stars make less. You keep printing your own stars. So hard to call this a golden age
Across the board.
Well, there's some very good TV being created on the very premium side, like Starz is doing in HBO, and there's some very, very good stuff being created at high budgets. Yeah. There's a lot of crap out there, and that's being made for lower budgets because that's what networks can pay for. And I mean, how many times have you said, I've got 1,000 channels and nothing to watch, which is kind of what happens to a lot of people.
All right. Good. There was a lot there. Oh, there was a lot there.
You asked the question. Yet I still don't get a glass.
Are there glasses in the back there by you guys? Can you bring, we'll give you $5 for 5 glasses. $6. You get to ask the first question.
Just spread them out.
Thank you, kind sir.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Take one and
Appreciate
pass.
that.
That's right.
Take one and pass.
Save one for me.
All right.
Nope, you get nothing.
You pour, and my list is now
All right.
completely depleted. Everything that I had to say was
Has
pretty
been
much said, except for one thing. And Scott referenced this, and I said this back in April.
Yeah.
I'll say it again. The difference between the golden age of radio and the golden age of television, as the elders in this room will remember, had everything to do with the size of the audience and the ability to reach mass audience across the American culture. And what we have now is, because of the fragmentation that has cut across from the broadcast networks to the cable networks to the premium networks to the internet to YouTube to any number of sources of entertainment, is I think the fabric of this nation has changed dramatically, because no longer is there a show like MASH or that can amass that size audience for its finale. It still holds a record. We don't see things together anymore. We see things separately. Even the biggest hits on premium television, and I'm going back to Sopranos, each episode of Sopranos was watched by fewer than 18 million people. I mean, and that's not a lot when you compare the 230, 240 people in America. Did it have noise? Yes. Did it have buzz? Yes. Was it high value television? Much applauded? Yes. But I think the difference between today and back then is largely fragmentation that's been made possible by the amount of distribution across the cable dial, across the internet. And the person you're referencing on YouTube is funny. We did a series called The Chair, where we took this guy, Shane, what's his last name, Dawson. He was a YouTube star. He has, everybody watched Shane do his little drag stuff about girls and everything. And he was one contestant. We had another woman contestant who was a writer and totally into an indie prod world, gave them the same script and asked them to make a movie. We gave them a modest budget. Well, the guy that was the YouTube, star, man, he brought people in droves in social media and Facebook and all that stuff. But that is, I think, if you're looking for a golden age of anything, it's short form, it's social media, it's YouTube. It's a way to get to a large audience and form a mass audience. The problem being, show me the money. Where is the money coming from? And if you don't have the money, you end up with a level of quality of video entertainment that just will never approach where we've been in the 50s, 60s, and all the way through the current decade. It takes a lot of money to put Game of Thrones on the air. It takes a tremendous amount of money to put our shows, Black Sails, Power, Outlander. I mean, a staggering amount of money, 10 million plus per episode for that quality of entertainment. I think that's the big difference that I see. There will always be high quality, very expensive shows, most of which are going to be better than Hollywood movies, which begs the other question we don't have to get into now. Are we in the golden age of Hollywood? I'll just end by saying NFW. Thank you for the water.
So a lot of different things that I think came out of that. You know, and I guess where I want to start with is sort of this idea of, you guys all used in some form or another this discussion around premium content and what does it mean to have. Okay, sir, you have to ask the next question. Thanks. So I guess where I wanted to go was with this idea of premium content, and does premium content actually define sort of what it means to become or be part of the golden era? So, I mean, you know, Paul, you obviously talked about a number of different pieces of this, including technology and so on. Is there a differentiation between what is premium content across something that's short form versus what you're doing on Stars versus a feature film anymore? Or why can't premium content just exist everywhere on all these different channels? Like, what is it that separates premium content as you guys are defining it?
The ability to pay for it.
So it could be, to use your phrase, crappy content, but as long as someone's paying for it, it's premium?
No. What I'm saying is premium content costs money, real money. And you have to be able to earn real money in order to invest the real money to make the show. So when you say premium, to me, premium is something that is better, way better than average. If the average is here, premium is up here. Higher quality production value, better writers, better actors, better everything.
But you don't necessarily have to pay for it as a premium service. I mean,
Correct.
You look at AMC and what they've been doing with shows like Mad Men. You look at Walking Dead. You look at Breaking Bad. You know, there is high quality television certainly still being made for commercial TV. And I think.
But what are the budgets of those shows?
The budgets of those shows are as high as the budgets of premiums. And if you look at the broadcasters right now, the light bulb went on a little late. But I think if you look at the fall season, year after year for the past 3 or 4 years, ABC, NBC, CBS, and Fox have come to the conclusion they have to do better shit, because no one is going to watch the formulaic, the old-fashioned kind of like cop dramas, and everything comes to a resolution at the end, and everyone lives happily ever after. They have learned, I think, and then across the panel, I think people will agree, it's become more competitive. My last point before I shoot it down the line is the pool of talent, and someone else mentioned this as well, the pool of talent in terms of writers, directors, producers, actors, actresses, cinematographers, the pool of talent seems to us to be growing far less slow than the demand. So what has happened now is that if you do have a good project, you are in the catbird seat. It is the golden era of television, and you'll get multiple bidders if you have a really great show that people want. Case in point, House of Cards. Everyone wanted it. Everyone pitched, you know, everyone was pitched by and Netflix did something that was, again, transformative. They said, yeah, sounds good to us. And you know what? We'll guarantee 2 seasons, no pilot, up front, you're good. And here's the budget, here's the money, go make it.
$100 million.
Yeah, it wasn't
number.
small change.
Yeah.
It wasn't small change. But it takes that kind of transformative deal, which takes a bunch of really large cojones to do, to break through that kind of logjam of talent. And that's what And that's why I'm glad my daughter is going to college and studying media studies and writing, because I know she'll work and she won't have to move back home.
Okay, let's move down to the end. Tehran and then John.
Yeah,
what's your take on sort of where the question was starting was around the definition of premium content?
Right. I think, Paul, it was you who talked about that shift of talent pool. And at the end of the day, if that new talent that today is not earning enough money becomes the future talent because they hold a bigger audience, at least the traditional model was all about the audience, whether it's in with one talent or an aggregation through a platform. And when I look at the example that you gave of Netflix, it's interesting because that's a vertical integration of a distributor becoming a content creator. So what is premium? Premium is probably where, and you guys already mentioned it, where the value will be extracted the most. The question becomes who will be able to extract the most and who is going to be the future premium content creator or producer. It's interesting to see this whole wave of disaggregation.
Do you think that's on a per minute of content produced basis, or how do you judge that?
I really hope that we can move away, for instance, from on the advertising side, that we can move away from CPM based value. That's a great question. I'm not sure that I have the answer. I think that when you look at the marriage of content and the value behind it, I mean, the commercial sponsors are a big chunk of change here. It becomes a question of how do I find the audience, identify what the audience wants, give them what they want, and at the same time marry that with a commercial message. To me, that's really where technology plays an exciting role. But who's going to monetize that, and who's going to own, the place from the platform from which you'll extract that value? That is to be seen.
John, what do you think?
Well, I think that that premium content is to the millennial audience is the content that they want to consume and spend the most time with. So to them, differentiating that the notion of premium content, it means something to an advertiser, but it's no longer defined by a production budget, but it's the content that the consumers most engage with and willing to pay for.
Yeah, and that they pay for either with their eyeballs or with their checkbook.
That's
or,
right.
So to speak.
Yeah.
Or I guess digital Apple Pay card or something of some sort. Scott, what do you think?
I don't know. I'm kind of torn with the thought that there's really a fundamental clash between quality and quantity. I mean, one of the things that certainly Nielsen comes across is that, the tuning events tend to be shorter and shorter, and our patience as viewers tends to be finite. We want to watch quick, hard-hitting, short versions of content.
A nation of ADD.
Pardon?
An ADD nation.
Yes, probably. But I didn't say that. You said that.
Yes.
And I remember
I'm one of those.
Wasn't there a series years ago? You're kind of my encyclopedia, David. Wasn't there a series called Thornbird?
Yes.
Thornbird?
Yes. It was a mini-series.
Yes. Wasn't it Richard Chamberlain?
Richard Chamberlain played a priest who would have loved to have been defrocked,
Well,
so to speak.
we got him later. But anyway.
So what was the point?
So I guess the question, I'm really trying to bait David. The question really is, is there any appetite for that sort of entertainment any longer in this country? It's hard to imagine anybody spending that sort of dedicated time to a television series. When was the last time a television series was developed?
I think Scott is talking about miniseries and
right.
multi-night miniseries. And the golden age of that, of course, was late 70s through the early 80s. And it was only not only Thornbirds, but Winds of War and Roots. And, there was any number of these shows back when there were only 3 networks and a couple of indies in every market. And most people got it over the air. You didn't have that many choices, and there wasn't that much to watch. So you could engage an audience over the course of 3 to 4 to 7 nights even to watch a high production miniseries, which was kind of taking filmmaking and breaking it up into little pieces. But again, the world has changed with technology. I mean, you look at across the dial any hour, any day of the week right now, and you go down your EPG, it's 20 minutes before you've seen everything that's on. By that time, it's the next half hour, and you get some other stuff on. We are bombarded with options, and I think the real question for people, because we can't decide it. We're providers. We're just ratings whores. Put it out there, hope that they watch it. The real question is, how are people going to edit and curate and bring this mass of entertainment into a structure that they can understand? That's why there's such a push, I think, for a la carte pricing for cable. It's not so much that they want a la carte pricing. They want to get away from the 150 channels they don't even consider as part of their world. They want to get it down to a number of channels that they're willing to pay for and that they can select from on a nightly basis. And with that, you can just punt to the next question.
So
a follow on to that, David, though, is depending on the service you have, you already are editing down from your 300 channels to your 30 or 40 favorites that you really watch and really tune to, right?
But you have to pay for that bundle.
You do have to
You
pay
gotta
for the
pay for it
bundle.
all.
That's
Yeah.
true. But the bundle pays for so many of those different content sources.
But it also pays for a lot of things you may not want.
Correct.
I think you
I
guys all
think
brought
that
up.
you have a follow up in one of the topics, but I think that leads into content discovery, because if all of this is about serving the interest of the viewing audience, then putting the right content is not just about the specific show within the lineup.
Right.
It's also, can I create a dynamic bundle based on my understanding of what you're interested in, and then maybe I'll be interested in paying for the 50 channel or 70 channel lineup, but it'll be my personal package, and I could, as an MSO, can extract more value from that.
And you think you'll save money doing that?
Not necessarily will I save money, but I'll get more value, because right now there are 90 of the 100 channels that I don't watch and have no interest in.
You'll get more perceived value.
Yes.
Well, but there's another issue, which is if you're a millennial, are you going to buy cable at all? Okay.
Right.
And if you could get into cable for a much lower price point and just get the few things you want, if you could do that, and that's an if,
And cable's responded.
and cable's responded, then maybe you'll get cable, or you'll say, you know what, I'll buy CBS for $6 a month online, and I'll buy Netflix, and I'll buy HBO, and I'll buy Stars Play, and I'm going to put together my own online offering, and I'm going to watch it on my big screen with my Google dongle, and I'm going to be happy as a clam.
You will feel better.
Mhm.
You've got what you want.
However,
Mhm.
you've got $70 worth of broadband Wi-Fi HSA somebody's got to pay for in order to get your dongle going.
Mhm.
And right now, the millennials have parents that pay for the high-speed
That was
access.
a very strange phrase.
I chose my words carefully. But that is the myth, I think, that people, when they talk about, bundling and shrinking and all that stuff, the myth is you're going to save a lot of money. The reality is that the people that have built the fiber nation, and whether it's fiber on the ground or whether it's DirecTV or Dish or the telcos, whatever it is, they have invested hundreds of billions of dollars in this network. They want a return on investment. They know they can get it. It's their highest profit product of anything right now. And if you're looking at your advertisements that come with your bills, you notice that, yes, you only pay $49.95 now, but don't you want faster speeds and even better? And so they're going to lift, the average from 40 to 50 to 60 to 70. That's the price of admission. They've already, I think, pretty much the distributors have gotten to the realization, maybe we are doing it wrong. Maybe we should invert the way the packaging happens. So let's sell them broadband. It's sticky. Once they have it, they'll never get rid of it. And then let them do a little a la carte rock and roll with HBO Go and with Stars Play and with CBS and with other services like here. And then do the math. You add up all of that pricing, guess what? You're back to $1.20, $1.30, but you got what you want.
But by the way, you got to keep in mind, you're going to be buying that broadband anyway. It's not like people are going to buy cable and instead of broadband. Mm-hmm. You're buying the broadband, and you're going to buy you're going to upgrade to the high speed. You're going to do everything you just said. Mm-hmm. And if you have a limited amount of money, which are you going to buy first?
Stars Play.
Yeah, of course.
Easy
Yeah,
answer.
of course, everyone gets Stars Play.
After Stars
But
Play.
to Scott's point, it's about you getting your perceived value and
Yeah,
not
but-
feeling that it's shoved down your throat.
You're also asking millennials to pay I think your point's a really excellent one. Millennials have to pay a lot to play. If you have to be connected, you've got to have your broadband. So you're entering at $70 with no programming. You got to pay that anyway, right? So if you get cable, it's on top of that. You don't get, sometimes you get a triple play, bonus, but not so much anymore. And also, do you even want a home phone? Because you're already paying for your cell phone and your cell phone data plan and all that goes with that. So if you're a millennial, you're starting out with your iPhone 6 and your cell phone data plan and your high speed at home. And so people always say, oh, millennials aren't willing to pay for things. No, they're paying more than we ever paid at their age. And they have no option. You can't not be connected in this world unless you're, living in a retirement home.
Starbucks. Did you ever see how many teenagers go to Starbucks, flip open their
And
laptops?
what they pay?
And they pay nothing for the Starbucks collection except for the $4 latte grande. But I mean, the whole idea, I think, is the whole millennial generation has been weaned at college. Wi-Fi is free in college now. They don't pay anything for access. They have open access to everything they want to pirate. Everything. They got their parents' Netflix subscription going on. They got their HBO Go subscription going on. There's a great transformation, I think, at 25 to 34 demographically, where all of a sudden your whole world revolves around who's got free Wi-Fi. I'll go there. I'll eat there. I'll drink there. If you've got free Wi-Fi, I will sleep in the street outside that store. But that is a big change. I think that's going to happen as part of what we're talking about in transition, because they don't have the $70 a month to pay for their own broadband connection coming into the
Well,
apartment.
I've heard Dad, can you turn on your tethering? I've heard that.
Say that again?
Dad, can you turn on your tethering on your phone?
Tethering.
Tethering.
Tethering. Yeah.
And then on top of that, it's how you're buying your Hulu Plus, you got your Netflix, you're buying Amazon, you're buying now HBO, and now you're buying CBS, and it's still unknown like how many subscriptions like consumers will actually tolerate.
So one of the things that one of you guys brought up earlier was this notion that convenience is here, but it doesn't really sound like this is too convenient. I think, Paul, you brought that up, actually.
Did I?
I think you did.
Did I use the word convenience? That's so unlike me.
No, you didn't use the word convenient.
It wasn't Paul.
No,
No.
but the whole point being, is this more convenient to do cord cutting, buy a la carte,
None of it's convenient. It's all a colossal pain in the ass. But it's the world we live in now. What was convenient is having an antenna on your roof and being able to turn on the TV and watch TV for free. That was convenient.
It's
But-
still possible. You can put a digital antenna up and get free television.
Yeah, which is actually pretty good quality too. I mean, the signal. But the point is, that's how people are consuming content. We don't need to debate whether it's good or whether it's bad. We know that they're consuming content in that way. We know they're paying actually quite a bit of money to consume content in that way. So it's not that people are unwilling to pay, but there's a limit. Are they going to pay $200 for combined cell phone, high speed, and then add another $150 on top for cable? That's why I think you're seeing this push towards a la carte pricing. It's because there's already a barrier we never had to pay for broadband because we didn't have broadband. So there was never a broadband bill because there wasn't broadband. So you only had one thing to deal with, your cable bill. Right. And we were weaned to, when you get to be 35 and you're married and at home, you
get the full package.
You get the big package on cable and watch your big TV, and that's what you do. And that's not what people are doing now. Yeah. Not as often. And so, and keep in mind, those millennials are now pushing 35. Yeah. And but they are spending and they're consuming things in different ways. But I go back to, you asked the question about golden age. Yeah. Someone's got to pay for the programming. The broadband companies aren't necessarily paying for the programming. Some might, but that's not the model right now. Right. Someone's got to pay the producers, the writers, the directors, the actors. Someone's got to pay them if people want story form programming. And if they want really high quality story form programming, like you see on Starz or HBO, you have to pay even more.
Right.
Someone's got to pay.
So then what's the role of the MCN in the future, or I guess now looking forward, as ABC or Disney acquired Maker, right? It just becomes another slot in terms of how they can distribute content. I mean, what do you guys think about that? Maybe start with you, John. Obviously you're there, so you're somehow capitalizing.
Sure. Well, we do a lot of work with Maker. One of the past of the MCNs is just trying to figure out how to bring that audience to traditional television. Maker's doing the programming blocks on the Disney Channel. Had a slate of formats at MIPCOM for the international market. So it's going to happen. One of the MCNs eventually will become an MSO is going to pick them up as a network.
Well, I mean that's assuming that. That's assuming that they want to pay them a license fee to do that. But I think that the MCN is its own end. I don't know that I don't need it needs to transform into anything. What does an MCN give you? It gives you a chance to aggregate audience across multiple platforms. So you may have a television channel, and you may have, an MCN on YouTube where you represent 40 YouTubers who have 5 million followers or 10 million followers. You have to monetize it. It keeps coming to that point. So what is the MCN business now? I doubt it's a premium business where people are paying subscriptions for it. I think it's more likely an ad-supported business. What that's going to do is that advertisers are going to start they're already putting their ads on these MCNs. They get those ads for a lot less money than they pay for television ads. So they like that. Keep in mind, advertisers are always saying, they're not like, they want the most number of quality eyeballs for the least money. And they want it in the most engaged way they possibly can. I do not believe they care whether it's on a television set or on a phone or on someone's computer. I do not think they care.
As long as Scott counts it all accurately. And that is a service that Scott and I have talked about a lot. And when it's very important to everything that we're talking about up here, it's no longer the minute by minute. It's no longer the quarter hour. It is how many people access that piece of content across all platforms it's available, across all plays it's available. I mean, that's going to be transformative in terms of the advertising world. They finally, I think, gotten to the notion that, yes, DVR playback within 3 days
It's a good thing.
counts. It took them 15 years to even think about that.
Right.
God forbid L7.
So Scott, what do you think of it then? Is that the direction Nielsen's heading? And
Oh, sure.
Like
Yeah.
Dave's calling you out a little bit.
Yeah. I mean, thanks for the tee up, David.
Scott, can you just
That's pretty sweet, right?
turn your mic?
Of the range of things that he could have said, it was perfect. Thank you, David.
I was being as kind as I can.
There is a dark side to David. You just have not seen it. Kidding. No, so Nielsen really is all about, cross-platform. So obviously the linear experience is changing, right? So we've talked about all the impacts. We've talked about cord cutters. We've talked about cord shavers. We've talked about cord nevers. We've talked about the cord nevers wanting to put the dollars into broadband because there's perceived value. The broadband supplies and is the source for content for so many different platforms that are must-have. So got it. Nielsen also has got it. I mean, we understood quite some time ago that this was a change that was beginning to accelerate and accelerate rapidly. The interesting part is that the tools that we have to use to measure some of these new silos of usage are very different. So this is not an advertisement for Nielsen and panel-based methodology, but you all know as an audience that we've used very accurate, well-chosen panels for many, many generations to represent the audiences and to report the data back to our clients. And we get the cooperation of the homes, we have equipment in those homes, et cetera, et cetera. Where that begins to become challenged is for you guys that have smartphones and tablets that consume content either in the home or out of the home or on airplanes. We need a different measurement paradigm for that. So what we've come up with is the methodology by which software development kits that are authored by Nielsen can be incorporated by those that have players, those that have distribution sources, so that we can actually measure the usage of those devices. And that measurement is available today. But we need to stimulate and push the industry to incorporate the SDKs because it is work. So when I say an SDK, I'm talking about the software equivalent of encoding or content identification and the software equivalent of a meter that's embedded within these platforms so that they can be measured. That's one pathway that we've been going down. The other pathway we've been going down is the use of tags, CMS tags, JavaScript tags, if you will, the ability to utilize tags to measure online video ads and online video programming that needs to be counted. And we are counting that on a census basis, which is very different than a panel-based measurement. And we have a relationship with Facebook. So the bottom line to this is that, we're on a path to provide all of that counting so that we can look across platforms to look at true delivery and true exposure and true ad resonance. But that's not easy, because what our clients want is one metric that can be sewn together across all platforms, and that's much harder to deliver.
And wouldn't you say that right now, I mean, as we speak, the metric for digital is really ComScore? That's what the sales guys, my sales guys run back to me like, what's your ComScore number? I mean, in the way that they used to run back to me in television and say, what's your Nielsen? And so I know what our advertisers are doing now is they're using both. They're using Nielsen for television, and they're using ComScore for digital. Now, maybe Nielsen will replace ComScore at some point, but at the moment, it's the way they do it.
Right, and perhaps ComScore has a leadership position in that space.
Mm-hmm.
Perhaps not. I'm not agreeing to that. I'm simply recognizing it. But we do have a product called OCR.
Scott has a dark side also.
All right.
He knows me well. So we have a product called OCR and digital program ratings that basically produce those census-based audiences for digital. Whether you happen to be a customer for that or not, or whether we have other customers that do align, but obviously it's a competitive landscape. But yes, we're all doing everything we can in that space. But it is about getting to the cross-platform performance, because at the end of the day, those exposures across multiple platforms is the key.
So then kind of shifting gears to one particular piece, because we've talked about sort of the aggregation side, the distribution side,
Right.
content creation side across the board here. Does someone like, maybe pick on you first, Dave, does Stars have to do all of that themselves? And is that sort of the wave of how this is all moving, is that you have to be vertically integrated from the creation to the aggregation to the distribution? Or, is there some balance between there where you're still going to aggregate content from other creators, potentially competitors, and so on? Love to get some of the other thoughts.
Just briefly,
Next. Yeah.
to borrow a phrase, it takes a village. Nobody in television does everything vertically and inside its own silo.
But is that the goal?
No, that's not the goal.
Okay.
Because you can't possibly hire the best writers, directors, producers, and make your own shows. You have to go outside your own company to find not only great programming and then do the deals either cooperatively, total buyouts, licensing, whatever it is to get that show on your network. But you also have multiple hardware companies and software companies that you have to deal with in order to make sure that the shows that you do create are formatted correctly, encoded correctly, so that you not only can push them up to the satellites and get them down to the sub-distribution points, but all of that technology marries well. And each of the devices we're talking about here today have different ways of receiving the signals and transcoding them into this beautiful picture that you have on your handheld or your iPad or whatever. And there are hundreds of people at every company whose jobs totally are talking to other hardware companies and to software companies and trying to figure out collectively how to take the content that you create, get it to the consumer, and oh yeah, there's a whole lot of other people that have to be engaged in marketing. And no one does their own in-house marketing 100% anymore. There are agencies that are far more and better equipped to do specialized campaigns for big shows, for little shows. So you have a coordination of marketing. You have sales organizations that have to deal with all the people that eventually collect the money and send the checks back to you. It is nobody's idea that the next world is going to be a total silo. Not even the small startups on webs. They all have partners. They all have teams.
Sure.
This complexity that both of you, Dave and Scott, are mentioning, it's interesting because it's not just the ability to measure across platforms a single instance of content. This becomes a content problem, because if to do true cross-platform measurement, I look at initiatives like SIM. You need to be able to take the original variant and then track it through all of the platforms that it travels through, and some of them are edited and reformatted, and it's not just that you can track from a distributor's point of view the platforms. You're looking at it from the content creator's perspective. What is my ultimates for that piece of content across all platforms and distributors?
But the content may be very, very different as it's transformed and moved across platforms.
Right.
So you may have a program that has very similar title, very similar sort of storyline,
Or different title.
but has been put together
Right.
with completely different set of
Yep.
commercials and promotions and other,
Yep.
and maybe they've even done some work to trim the duration of the program, in which case you have to rely on certain business rules which have guided this industry for better than 50
And
or
maybe
60
the answer
years.
to your original question, Mark, about who wins, what is premium content, is those who can truly traverse this ecosystem of partners, not only in distribution and passing on this information from platform to platform, but those content producers and creators who know how to track their asset in all of its derivatives through international distribution and through linear and digital.
That's a good point. So I'm going to ask you guys each one more question, and then we'll open it up to the audience. So be thinking, if you have a question, what you'd like to ask. So kind of my final question, getting back to sort of the original question. The original question was, are we in a golden era? And you kind of had a number of different points around that.